morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to tonight's broadcast of the WTRL Team Time Trial number 150. It feels iconic, sometimes distant. It's not quite a number of them out here that we have had, and we've got a lot of teams signing up for the Platinum League. Dave is on a plane. Well, I think he's probably off a plane at this point, doing some awesome KOM challenges, I think, and announcing those. So Anna is hanging out with us, and also I think just got off a plane. And I really appreciate her hanging out with us, even though she just got off a plane from the it looks like the bedroom stream.
This just looks so wrong, doesn't it? I am sans green screen. I am on a family holiday. For all the Kiwis out there, I am down in Tokor. I was going to be helping to commentate Ironman New Zealand, but unfortunately it was cancelled. And so we're just here for a family holiday. Coming to you from my little holiday home.
Absolutely loving it. See, the commitment level here at Drift Community
I
Live
know.
is just beyond any other from Anna. I mean, now the question is, did you bring the whiteboard, and can you still give us any of these inside tips about the course out here today, or is it all up in the air?
I mean, it's tried and true TTT. It's a good one. Greater London Flat. I like it. Was this the one for the World Tournament last week? Because I was riding around London last week in the World Tournament. It might have been
Greatest.
it's
Yeah, because we
right
go
because
uphill.
that climb, which was brutal. I have to thank Martin for that later. That was really add the spice to the legs.
Thanks,
That's
Martin, for
easy.
that.
But this one, I think I have raced this one before. It's a lot more traditional through a bit of flat, and if I remember rightly, goes through that kind of a few rollers in Richmond Park. But other than that, is a good one to have some fast times.
Yeah, really fast times out there actually already. We're going to jump right down into the action with the latte crew here and see how they are playing out so far. As it does look like pretty solid times coming in actually from Cyrus, interesting enough, earlier
Oh,
today.
there you go. And
They
that's what I'm ripping.
they were flying today, actually. I mean, seriously flying today. I thought I saw something like a 36-minute time or so. So we'll start looking at some of these times actually right from the get-go and see what everybody has to challenge out there today. In the men's race right off the bat here, Cyrus Nopin's coming in with a 36:24, it looks like. The only one so far in for the Doppio. That's the time to challenge. But in the Espresso is coming out of zone 4, 37:10. So almost a full minute difference here between the Espressos at the top end of the leaderboard right now. And then as we jump across here, we'll be Dirt 0017 tend to do a really good job to start the day. A lot of times they do tend to be at the top. Figgy Train, though, this is a new team I'd never heard of until this past couple of weeks. And they have kind of been a little bit of this like upset team that's come out of nowhere. They probably have some familiar names out there. Matthew Gardner in chat saying we nearly died. It was brutal.
Oh,
Faster
he's in my
courses,
Discord
Anna?
chat.
What do you think, Anna?
Discord chat.
Faster courses like this? Like, I mean, does it tend to... What do you think about the efforts and the differences when there's more climbing versus a flatter course? I do feel like there's a difference. It's just identifying and putting some language to exactly what that is.
So, do you know what I found? Even though I complained a little bit before, I did actually find the course last week with a bit of a hill suited me well because I'm not, and this comes down. I mean, how deep do we want to go? But this comes down to that watts per kg versus watts. This kind of a course is watts, and for a rider like myself who kind of relies a bit on the watts per kg and a bit lighter, this is actually really hard because you've got to ride really high watts to stay in. Whereas someone who's maybe a little bit heavier, they don't have hills to contend with as much. This is a field day for them. They can jump out and hit those high watts, till the cows come home, and they're loving it. Um, so I think this is where it kind of differs. When it gets into a little climb, I loved it because there was no draft essentially. You just settled into a rhythm, kind of paced each other up, and it was really nice. But this course, it will be hard, even though there aren't the climbs we had last time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. I think that when it comes to the flatter courses, do end up in a little bit. If you have a lot of parity between everybody's thresholds and everyone's really pressing the pace on each other, you do end up having this situation where you're just doing complete over unders on a flatter course, no rest. There isn't any downhills, no super cupping. So it's pretty much an all out 36-minute over under interval is what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you're probably setting some new FTP records probably too if you're in really good shape, or if those who are you're with are a little bit above your fitness level. It's just going to really press you to your absolute limits. Whereas with the climb out there, if you're a better climber or the descent or what, you can kind of or you just pop, right? Like it's like, nope, sorry, it's over, and
Oh,
then you just pop on the climb, and so you do end up with something a little bit more wiggle room, I think. Whereas with this situation, it's just full gas from the get go to the end.
yeah. There is actually a question, and this is, it is for my own benefit, but I know we've got people watching on YouTube, so I want them to comment in. Also, actually on the Ceres Discord with Matt at the moment, so I've asked them for a bit of intel as to their effort today and why they're focusing on the TTT. They see they're doing it every week, trying to go for the course records. So, kind of interested as to why they're doing that, probably for friendly practice. But yeah, the question I have is I was DS last week in the TTT by Aaron Bleakley, actually, from NZ Bro. Great DS. Now, he went with a strategy of we just took turns every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, you kind of shifted and you went to the next person and you would have given a time. So if you're looking on screen now, you're saying, hey, next rider at 15, and you just went up at 15. Now, the strategy I've been going with is saying often 5. So the rider at the front says often 5, and then the next rider pulls up. I actually am beginning to wonder if that's not the right strategy, because what I was doing in the TTT is by the time you say often 5, you're so gassed, you just immediately think, well, I've said I'm coming off, and you just drop all your watts, and then the momentum.
Well, you're not telling the truth. You better tell the
No,
truth then, right? Like it's whether or not you're actually telling the truth is the question there, right? Like, so don't say often. You're saying don't say often 5 because you're lying. Is that what you're
well,
saying?
my overall question is it the rider's responsibility to say when their turn is over, or do you just leave that entire responsibility to the DS? I'm leaning towards the DS because then you won't have that massive momentum drop.
Ah, gotcha. So the athlete can completely focus on their job, is what you're getting at there. It sounds like, and just do
Yeah,
your job. And the DS goes and says, "Hey, be prepared. Often 5, so start rolling through." Right,
yeah,
and make sure you have your speed and the rider, and that's one thing, Anna. It's so glad that you bringing this up, because in the TTT, something personally, like right now, I have a personal emotional investment in being angry at my team. Actually, sometimes when when I'm like rolling through and the guy behind me didn't like hold my wheel, and I'm like, why didn't you understand that you can't stay at the same watts when it's my time to roll through, and I'm gonna it's like, well, if we want to just kind of do this 5 or 6 on the front, fine, but we're a team that's going for a winning time. We want that acceleration through, not like orange numbers, but we're gonna bump it up here, and we're gonna carry speed through as best as we can, and everybody behind is gonna get that benefit. I really want to say to the DSs out there how important it is to set your riders up really well for the anticipation of everything. It's not just I have a turn coming up. It's how do I interact with the position changes for that turn coming up, and how will the speeds change, and how do I need to interact with the avatars with those speed changes for where I'm placed in the line right now, because being the man and woman on deck has a responsibility that I think a lot of athletes out there don't really understand, and you end up with this total mess because of it.
yeah. I'm just actually seeing some chat coming into Gina Van Rossum. Shout out to Gina. She's been absolutely lighting it up in ZRL. But yeah, she's been saying the DS takes control. I think I'm tending towards that. I mean, our team's in playoffs next week with a TTT, and I'm tending towards the DS taking full control. And Dan Pedroza, TTT team anger is real. I do also want to touch on that because I thought I was the only one.
Anger
I'm
with love.
sitting,
Anger with love, he says,
yeah,
though it is. It is because you're just trying to win, right? You're just
I
trying to
know.
like do the best you guys can.
I know, and it's so I am not an angry person. Maybe with like the lack of sleep I'm having at the moment, I'm a bit more angry than I think. But I was in the TTT being like, don't push me out from behind. Get back in that draft. Like not on,
Yeah,
I'm just saying
gotcha.
it in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, there's some anger for sure. So I am so glad I'm not the only one. Thank you, Dan, for saying that because I felt like maybe I was just having an angry day.
Lots of comments coming on in from all kinds of athletes. Actually, Cora Lee G from the top end WLC team coming in saying the DSNS you can no longer take your turn. Dan is saying that the TTT anger is real, but it's anger with love. I'm loving this. Very, very cool. And actually, Gardner coming on in. It's so important to communicate. It's not always second rider who needs to pull next. Momentum often takes the set. Nice call there. Especially now, okay, we're deep in the woods here, but I think it's a
Yeah, we've
good
gone deep.
thing. But this is good. I think people show up for this, especially having whiteboard expert here. And this is another thing that is so absolutely key because the course you're on and where you are on that course is 100% going to dictate what needs to happen at that moment. Right? I mean, if the speed's coming through and the DS sees one of the riders from back to front with 56 kilometers per hour, do you stick to the 52 that is almost like inevitably going to be the front couple of riders? No, you let that 56 come through and get somebody else to grab that wheel that's going to be able to at that moment, and you do an audible. You just got to do audibles sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that I mean I so agree with Matt there, and I know that's the strategy that Saris has. There is a caveat to that you have to have an extremely good DS to be able to do that, to have the momentum strategy, because it is a strategy I believe. But if your DS, and I'm calling out Evelyn here with absolute love, she is so
Is she watching
polite.
the broadcast? That's what I want to know because
I don't know.
Evelyn,
I'll get into it.
she'll have fun with this one though. I know Evelyn, and she's
Love
a
it.
firecracker with the humor. That's for sure. So
The
this will be a
Ganyan,
good
the
one.
Canyon. So she she DS'd our last TTT, and halfway through we had to say, "Stop being so polite," because her DSing was, Anna, Anna, if you feel like you're okay and the legs are good, you could move to the front. I'm like, "Oh my god, just tell me to move to the front. Just tell me to go." The next person,
You're being too
yeah,
Canadian. Stop being
yeah,
so Canadian. Oh my gosh! Like just say it. Bring some of
yeah.
the New Zealand Aussie like straight from the hip. Bam!
I
Hit me with it right now.
It's so funny. So I agree with Matt, but I do caveat that you've got to have a DS who is absolutely on top of their game. And I do. Matt has sent through some notes about why Saris, which is a top 10 team, is focusing on the TTT, which we've seen, is that they because they've got the shared suffering out there, they're finding that they're hitting a higher gear, like a better power than they can when they're suffering alone. So they're kind of using it to really test themselves and just push their power numbers in a sort of team environment, which is awesome. I think that's what a lot of these teams do out here is you can push that extra few watts because you don't want to let down your team.
That's a really good point about a team training situation too. Like the whole idea
Mhm.
of using the team time trials in a space where all of you can just press each other as hard as you possibly can with a clock out there as well on a weekly basis. Talk about the like a refiner's fire situation. Like I mean, like you all get together and you just completely sharpen each other in that situation. That sounds like an awesome team training camp every week. What really cool to hear from Cyrus there. Shout out to them, and that's obviously one of the top Premier Division teams, setting an awesome example for everybody out there of how you can get together and do some awesome training.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I do. I've spent I haven't got into this immediately, but I do just want to touch on a little bit of fashion here. I always love the TTT fashion. It's probably the time you see it on display the most. What is going on here with Flintstone? There's a lot to unpack.
Well,
I've just been sort of looking
the
at the screens.
name. I mean, the name. Does the name say it? I mean, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Oh, maybe. I love the They're not the Neokyo shoes, but they are. I think they must be the latest Tour of Zwift shoes, perhaps the lace ups with the sort of bright aqua. I
Of
love the
course, you
shoes, but
know where those came from too. Like, I mean, you're like,
yeah,
those aren't Neokyo. Just so you know, everybody, like those are actually not Neokyo. If you think they are, they're actually the latest. And I'm sitting here going, I don't have a clue where those came from. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, oh, this is where you get that. And this is where you would be like the dungeon master of World of Warcraft, where you get every single piece of gear you could possibly find in game to
okay.
get the right
We had a
setup that you need
very
to.
we had a very exciting day yesterday. I sacrificed half my warm up for the Zwift Racing League final race to actually go and select the new Chapter 2 bike that is sitting in game. And Eric Schlange from Zwift Insider has updated because if you don't know, the February update made all those group sets lighter. You know how there was that era where they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
all
So
too
now
heavy?
there's a bunch of
And,
even ones, right? Like
yeah,
there's a ton of even
and
ones.
Chapter 2 represent New Zealand. Not only does it look like a fantastic bike, but it's a New Zealand company and the bikes are in real life awesome as well. And so I'm on that bike and it is now a Tron beater. It beats the Tron and that actually might be that rider who's got one
That
on there.
sounds like a
I think
horrible
that rider
abusive
has a decent one.
relationship. A Tron beater. Like, is this like a like?
It is a Tron beater on rolling terrain. I think that rider in the shot now is actually on the Chapter 2 bike. Now, what you'll love about the Chapter 2 bike in game, yes, it is see how that yellow there? You can change that color to match your kit. This rider should have gone with the blue to match the blue. Well, it goes with the yellow gold with the socks. But yeah, you can change that to make it look spot on with
There's
your kit.
multiple
So,
chapter twos actually here. And
yep,
it's
that's
a
right.
Tron
It's
beater.
definitely a Tron beater.
I mean,
It is. It is a Tron beater. There we go. Love it.
Okay, we've been on TV for quite a while here. The first starters, obviously, on the day. It looks like they're coming. It's going to be finished working with the 2002 so far. Cryo jumped to 2006. And we're looking at it here as well, the 2013 from Coach Latte at the 14K mark. If you look at the 6 kilometer marker for these riders, 8:33 Valhalla coming on in. They are usually the fastest team. WLBB actually very slow today compared to the Niner field. They're holding back at 45 seconds difference between the fastest and the slowest so far at the 6K. 6K though is very early retirement ranking. One lap down and one to go with some leading along the way out there today with 29K in total. 36 minutes being the fastest time. We're probably looking at somewhere between 36 and then there's the 3 A's and the 13 of the specialists all the way to Americas today. So solid job so far by this TV team. KC, we'll take a look through. We'll just jump through a lot of these here in the Lattes now that we've looked at the first times that they come in. And then we're going to start jumping across to some of our featured teams as they make their way around for us.
Getting some chat in that apparently, if we wanted to see good fashion out there, AHDR teams never disappoint. This is a FYI. And people have, they're going, Dan, you are absolutely right on the money with all of your comments today. Fashion penalty plus 5 seconds. Martin, can we just, if we can add that into the results, that would be awesome. Fashion penalties get a 5 second penalty there on the riders. So good call out from the community. Not sure the racers will be so happy with that, but yeah, I'm all for it.
We do have some awesome announcements here as well, everybody, that we can go ahead and start here in just a second. But we do have the winners of the World Championship from the World Champions in the tournament last week that we can talk about here as well as who won the veto match. It's pretty exciting as well. It does, so we'll go ahead and get that up here in just a second. So don't go anywhere, everybody, as we'll be able to give you guys an action. It's pretty cool that Veto Match is able to provide branded team hats for one team that was selected randomly from a hat for these new Veto Match. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah, we shout out to all those world champions because we went in with the high hopes of being world champions and as each race progressed we just got shunted down a little bit further and further and further. So there was some extreme racers out there who just they took to that course like pros. It was amazing. yeah, really cool. I don't often do the TTTs, but it was a cool experience. It was quite early in the morning. Seeing them up there now, yeah, wow. Sarah Snowpins. Oh my god, they killed Kenny. The Espresso, great name. TSZ Scoom Ponty. I'm not sure what that is. Eat Dirt too. And I think we just got the Dirt Riders on screen as well. Coalition Tempest. Wahoo Lacole Woman. Now that was the people we were up against. Wow. They absolutely set that course on fire. Socks for Watts, Galaxy Supernova, and Kirchner Team Bees. Yeah, those are some legit World Tournament winners.
And as you can see, the Vienna Kirchner Team Bs are highlighted with the yellow there. That means they are the winners of the Velo match. So they will be getting in contact. Obviously, WTRL will be getting in contact and to set that all up. But we should be seeing some cool Kirchner Team Bs branded Velo mats coming their way. We got to get some pictures of that. Make sure to share them up once you do get them, and we'll highlight that here on Zilch Community Live. Congratulations to the World Tournament winners out there. Great job and huge effort last week from each one of those teams that did win. And I think some medals will also be in the mail for you as well for each one of those teams, which is a huge undertaking for doing so. So big shout out to them. It looks like the time's coming in 1953. Mjolnir, ATP Racing Nitrogen. Can they hold on to 1 second difference here for first and second right now? It's going to be all about what the Vikings can bring on through. What I want to know is WLBB Latte, if they're going to be able to up the game here in the second half of the race, because they were the second fastest team last week. But, you know, it might have been the climb. And, you know, this is a very different course today.
Yeah, absolutely different. And also, the World Tournament ride, that brought out, you know, hermit crabs like myself who are out there doing a TTT. So it brought out some different riders as well, whereas this is always the kind of like tried and true, steadfast TTT crowd who come out every week and do it. So I think the World Tournament results might have had like a bit of a shake-up compared to what we would see today, but 1929 at that second time check, I mean, what, almost 25 seconds ahead of their compatriots, another Vikings team there. But that, look at that closeness between the race number 2 and 3 between Vikings and ATP. 1 second between those. That could be a good competition to watch.
Yeah, it is a good one to watch there. As you see, I mean, it's always pretty dang close here. But WLB being 20, 40, 80 actually more than they were before. But look at how close it is between second to ninth. I mean, this is obviously in the latte is very, very close. And then you have the Vikings Valhalla just kind of walking away. That's who we do have on screen here right now. It's going to be Jensen, Rimstar, Nurbo. It looks like 5 left. Do they have some drop off perhaps? Yes, Silk dropped off, it looks like here. So they did burn a couple of matches early on, but not the worst thing in the world. You definitely need to just keep on moving on, especially on a fast course like this, where speed is so incredibly important to be consistent all the way through. You can't really let up at all, because every moment of any speed loss whatsoever here on a course that's this flat is going to do huge amounts of damage to your time at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to also talk about, I'm taking this from my own TTT experience from last week, is the devastation almost of being that last rider. I'll explain it. So when you can finish with 4 riders, right? And you're sort of sitting there on the rivet. So I'm looking at this team because they've got 5 riders. Now, there'll be a couple of riders here who are really hurting and they're thinking in their heads, I can still drop because they just have to finish with 4, right? Then what happens is someone else drops and you're left going, oh no, I've got to do this last 10K and I'm feeling this bad. A shout out to those riders. I was that person last week. I was kind of going up the climb and there were 5 of us. I was thinking, okay, I'm feeling pretty terrible. I can drop if I need to. And then someone else dropped and I was like, oh no, this is it for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to feel this bad. So a shout out to those riders. It is a really, really hard spot to be in.
Yeah, tough spot. It's like, well, I mean, you are right though on the rotation here. You kind of do see the same riders coming through and coming through and coming through over and over again. So, interesting to see how this can play out here with this Vikings team. But I think they have enough wiggle room to work with here. They've got enough, you know, time, space, left. I mean, that they've given themselves essentially now at this point for the second half. But you know, along the race, still 10K to go. Okay to go. We'll see if some of the other teams kind of ramp things up. It is Vikings versus Vikings right now out there, though. Ionia versus Valhalla at this point. I'm going to jump on over to a long-time community member,
Oh,
DJ Alfonso from Team PTZ. I've been commentating on DJ Alfonso literally since the first ZTR races ever went down. I'm not kidding. I believe he probably was in the first broadcast that we ever broadcasted on the Nathan Guerra Twitch channel. That's how old school BJ Alfonso is when it comes to esports, racing, and helping with Team Portugal. Actually, there is a reason, and I mean, early on, we partnered with them so much that this team had the Vision logo actually on the kit. You can actually see it underneath the ride-ons right there. That's how
oh,
old school
cool.
things are. Like this is a very, very long time, very committed community member, and it's really great to see them out here today hammering away in the mochas right now.
I do want to talk about BJ Alfonso a little bit because we've got some of Deborah. So they've got a mixed team. It looks like Deborah out there as well, Deborah Souza. But this is what I'm talking about with raw watts. So BJ has raw watts here. I think it's an FTP's put down of 268. A bit of a heavier rider. I don't know. I mean, he's put it in his comments. So he said he's fat and slow. It doesn't look like slow since he's got that pretty high watts. But you look at the watts of the rest of the team 159, 173, 187, 137. He is over 100 watts above everybody else. And so this course for him to keep the whole team together and look at what we're seeing on screen.
Speaking
This
of,
is what's going to
you're right on,
You've
right on, like right on cue. It was almost like you could have set this up, actually, Anna.
I just know that much about watts and what that's going to look like on screen. I'm sort
The
of
whiteboard is like literally playing out right in front of your eyes. She says it and it happens. I mean, it's like
exactly.
her whiteboard is now game code at this point. I mean, it's no different. Thiago Costa.
Like
go ahead, Anna.
This is a hard team to keep together though. When you've got a 268 versus the lower end of 137, mostly flat terrain. This is almost impossible unless BJ can just like really rein it in and take super long turns. Like I'm talking 5-minute turns at low watts. But yeah, this will be hard because you've got we talked about Deborah Souza. So she's 38 years old, a nurse, indoor cyclist, and trail runner. So shout out to the nurse, and I've got to say the trail runners can end up being pretty good Zwifters. So, but this is going to be a hard day for her with that huge discrepancy between herself and BJ.
Looks like they're all bringing this back together, which they had to, right? They have to finish with 4, so they needed to bring at least one of those riders back into the fold here. They did give us a little bit more information. Actually, really appreciate them being one of our highlighted teams. And about Team PTZ, was born in 2015. Team winner of the first tour, the Zwift, in August of 2016 with the Kiss Racing bronze medal in PAX World Championship in October 2016. In-game kit came in June of 2017 after a powerful tag of PTZ. Waiting for the kit. I do remember that. Actually, it was almost like the TFC kit. Because like the TFC kit and the PTZ kit both kind of had that waiting thing happening for quite a while. Which is, we almost had we almost didn't want the kits to get in game because it became such a topic. I'm not kidding. So they actually have 2 regular Monday events. Boda Yuma Race Series inspired by Route Almeida. And the next Quick Step rider, and now UAE. And Saturdays, they also have another ride, which is Joaquim Agostino ride, with the former Portuguese cyclist. Principal results in the Tour de France, and the Espana, sounds like. So 2 cool rides that they have. Go check those out with PTZ, and pretty solid. Interesting, everybody here, except for one of the riders, is into the Masters category. So good to see all these riders continuing on and hammering away specifically here out on Zwift. I want to give a shout out to Thiago Costa. He's a tech developer, played American football actually, and it looks like he's bike. Obviously, bikes are also a passion. It looks like, but an American football player going over to the bikes. We've heard a little bit, actually, that a lot more recently. Brett Favre recently got on the platform in the last year or so, as well as a few other top American football players. So cool to see, and definitely making gains here. Looks like it's a Cat C D rider, flag faster.
So I'm not super familiar with American football, but what kind of crossover would you have here? I mean, I could just picture them being really, really good sprinters, just having from all the gym work they'd have to do and all the explosive power. But are there athletes in American football who have got more of that endurance? Like,
No,
could they come in and
no,
do good?
no,
No, it's all
no,
going to be
no.
explosive.
It's all sprint.
No.
It's all power. It's all like. I mean, if we were to take somebody from American football and bring them over, I mean, yes, okay, look, not the running backs, not the linemen, but maybe the wide receivers. A wide receiver is going to be lanky enough, going to be lean enough maybe to make a transfer over a year or two, I would say, or maybe some really really good discipline in like 6 months to a year. Is the only place, and I could even say that being more towards even triathlete than I would say pure cyclist, just because of the amount of um, you know, raw muscle that is going to be on a football player in order to take those hits, in order to be able to be involved at that kind of level of bulk play, I'm just going to call it. I mean, you're going to get into
Yeah.
essentially a boxing ring with bodies, hitting you. So, it's going to be, the crossover is difficult at a road race kind of situation, but you could get a ruler out of somebody, from the wide receiver, and then otherwise I would say pure sprinter and track if he is familiar with the American.
Because I have seen some American football players go and race Kona, like Ironman Kona, but I think they've had to do like some serious like body adjustments and get into the long runs and the long rides.
Well,
So I
you
guess
can
it
have
can be
shoulders
done,
and
but
tries. You can have shoulders and tries. Cyclists tend to get rid of it. So,
yeah,
right?
true,
You got
true.
to
You
have
need
them for swimming. You got to swim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's quite a good to see him out here riding then if he's from American football crossing over. And good to see that finish strong. I'm sure that that's like a huge amount of power hooking it to the line, which
He
would be
just
good to
got to
see.
get left
Although
at 190 beats per minute, though, right? Like
he's fine.
dragging it out, and there's four left. They are keeping it together, though. Good on them. They're gonna have to let the Raiders go, though. I think here at 172.